morning, everybody. Welcome to today's live session and welcome to week 1 of Aloha 24 October. This week is all about, or I should say this month is all about Hawaiian invertebrates. So those are snails, just like the one we're painting today, and also bees, butterflies, spiders. And I thought because Halloween, the cutesy creepy crawlies would be a good one for this month. I am very excited to show you how to paint this one today because it features my favorite combination of mixed media and one of my favorite techniques. So we're going to start with a watercolor base or a watercolor wash at first, and then draw in some details with colored pencil. We're going to use a little bit of negative space technique for the leaf. And the beauty about this technique is that you can lay down the base and the shapes with watercolors and then just really don't worry about the details because you're going to go in with a pencil. And I find it easier when you use a second medium on top of watercolor to add shadows and texture. Maybe that's just me, but I want to show you how today, and then let's see if you like it as much as I do. Hi everyone. Okay, I'm gonna turn the camera around so I can see your comments in the chat as well. Hold on. Okay. I'm gonna turn the camera around and then plug my phone in so I don't lose battery. Okay, so here we go. Okay, let me set this up real quick. And please let me know, as always, how the sound is. Please let me know if you want me to zoom in, zoom out. You can also always ask me to repeat something. You know, these live sessions are really there for you, and I want you to feel comfortable with asking whatever question. Also shows me, you know, if I could explain something better or in a different way. Okay, let me just quickly look over to the chat. Hi Sylvie. Hi Tracy, Bina, Steph, everybody's here, Dorit and Colleen and Alina and Kerstin. Ooh, and somebody from Waikiki. Cloudy morning in Waikiki. Over here it's beautiful. We have blue skies. It's a bit cooler though, but you know, we have people from Germany in the in the stream who are just like in the winter right now. So I don't wanna say anything about temperature being cool here because it's still it's still warm, right, you guys? Wonder if my mom's has anybody seen mom? No, she's not here yet. Okay, she'll maybe join later. Hey, before we start, I would like to know, would you guys like to see the travel set that will drop on Sunday for the shop update? Should I introduce that? We could maybe do this after the stream. I just wanted to ask you if you wanted to see that at all. I did send out a newsletter this morning with all the infos, but it doesn't really show the swatches of the set. So let me know in the chat, in the comments, if you want me to introduce the set after our session. And if you can't stay that long, you know, you can just go back to the recording and move over to the end and then see the swatches of the new set. Okay, yes, everybody's saying yes or of course. Very good. Okay, so in that case, let's do our little kawaii kahuli-chan, as my as my mom called it in a message this morning. She mixed like 3 languages. It was so cute. The the kawaii Hawaiian snail Kahuli-chan. And we'll paint this one first, and then afterwards I will introduce the new set. Okay, so for the steps, we're going to do a pencil sketch first. I prepared mine, but I'll show you how to do it in case you haven't done it yet. Then we'll start with the watercolor base layers, and in the end, when everything's dry, we'll just go over everything with colored pencils. I do have my Aloha watercolors, and look at this cute sticker. This is so cool, from Chloe. I have lemon yellow, which is also a color that will be available at Sunday. I haven't made it in 6 years, so if you don't have lemon, just use any other bright yellow. I have Awapuhi, which is a primary kind of pinkish red. If you don't have this, you can use Orchid or any quinacridone magenta, or actually any kind of bright red, and mix it with a little bit of pink. I have cocoa, which is a burnt umber. Waimea, which is a raw sienna. Kahakai, that means beach in Hawaiian, and that's a mix of yellow ochres and raw sienna. So if you don't have that, you can just use a mix of a yellow ochre with some kind of brown. And Kupukupu is a very funny, like almost neon-like lime green. If you don't have that, you can also use ulu, which is a similar color in my collection, or just mix a bright yellow, like a lemon yellow, with, for example, a phthalo green, and then you should be getting a very bright limey green. Next up, I have a bunch of colored pencils. So today I chose colored pencils that are not water soluble, which means I have to really have the paper to be dry before I apply them. If you want to be more on the safe side, you can also use water soluble colored pencils because they are softer and they won't rip your paper. So this is one of the most important tips for you to remember if you're not familiar with this already, is to use water-soluble colored pencils if your paper is still damp. And of course, if you want to have everything blend and mix a little more. If you use the regular colored pencils, your pencil strokes will show up more. I'd say you'd see more texture of the paper come through. And in comparison, the water-soluble color pencil will mix more with the watercolor, especially when the paper is still damp. I have a bunch of brushes, different round brushes, size 10, 4, and 0. I don't even know why I have the 0. I don't think we need it, or do we? Oh, that's right. Yeah, for the oher, those little ringlets here, maybe. Actually, I think I did those with the number 4 as well, because it has such a nice tip. The white ones are Kum Germany brushes, Memory Point, Kum, K-U-M, and then this is a Shimoni Art brush, size 4. I'll link everything in the caption down below if you want to look it up later. Okay, my paper today is Hahnemühle, just like last time. Bamboo. So I've experimented a bit with this. If you remember in the last session, we painted the owl, and I had such trouble with the galaxy because I used a hairdryer and it was creating these drying edges. But I do find that for illustrations, this paper is great. I find it a bit harder to work with it for large areas with mixing and blending. So just as a personal tip for you to use it for illustrations, I think it's just a perfect paper. And yeah, it's mixed media, so it's not like suited for just watercolor, or like 10 layers of watercolor, I wouldn't say. But for something like today, mixing watercolor and colored pencils, I personally think it's perfect. All right, let me get a scrap piece of paper so I can show you how to do the sketch. And something that you can see well, just use a colored pencil. All right, so in this case, I start with the leaf, the main leaf. So that is just kind of like an oval shape with two tips on both sides, or 2 points. And then I want to place my kahuli more on the right hand side of the leaf. And for the shell, I start with drawing this reverse teardrop shape. I add the body and the head of the snail with the eyes. I'm sure there's a name for this particular organ here, where where the eyes are sitting at the end. They're not antennae, are they? That's more for butterflies and bugs. Now that we have the basic shape, you can go in and refine the shape. So these snails have a few curves like this. Just go in like this, and then towards the tip of the shell, they become a bit smaller in distance. So what I'm saying is, like, here the first one goes in like this, then the second one is already a bit shorter. Then here the third one, yet a bit shorter. And then this one, and then just a little tip here. And then you want to mirror this on the other side like this. So basically you're drawing a croissant, is what I'm saying. So, and I find it interesting because my natural idea would be to connect the points, but I looked at these snails and it's not what always happens. So the lines and the patterns kind of like go over in a pretty wild way. So don't worry about where exactly you put the lines in. The only thing you need to pay attention to is that you follow the shape of the shell with your lines. So don't make them straight, no straight lines. You want to have the curve imitate the shape of the shell. So we are drawing in those lines and kind of like wrapping our croissant with it. Can you see all right? Should I zoom in a little bit, or is it okay? Okay, this is our snail. And then up here, we'll draw in 2 more leaves. Honestly, for the sketch, don't be too concerned to get every single detail in there. I want you to think of this piece more like, or as an outlines, quick outlines for the drawing part, rather than spending too much time on the sketch. I want you to think of it more in, okay, I'm gonna position the snail in this part, and then the leaves much bigger, and then 2 leaves at the top, these florals here at the bottom, and then kind of like a diagonal going over to the other side and drawing in these buds of the ocher. And again, I wouldn't draw in all these lines. I think it frees you up more if you can just go in with the brush or the color pencil later and just draw in and create these lines wildly. But I am aware that for some people it is much more relaxing to have a perfect sketch and then to just basically color it in. And if you're one of these people, then by all means, please do it that way, because this is all about you getting the most joy and relaxation out of the painting process. So no shame in doing a perfect sketch and then coloring it in. It's just that for me personally, I like to just do something very quick and then start coloring as soon as possible. Okay, so zooming in a little bit, I'll show you my sketch again. And a quick recap, I started with the leaf, a big elliptic shape. I placed my kahuli in there, more on the right hand side. It's actually coming over the edge of the leaf a little bit over here. And then I added some leaf details and some flower buds around the main leaf. If you like, you can also draw in very lightly the center vein of the leaf. And you could draw in the ones that go off to the sides as well. But then again, for me, it's just something where I kind of like to freehand it later with a negative space painting technique. Okay, Sylvie just said that she loves the monk seal brush rest. Yeah, it's so cute. Look. So you guys, I actually I started a ceramics class yesterday, which is crazy because it's once a week for a long time. But I'm already enjoying it so much, and I'm planning to do all the things, mixing palettes, and you know, I have so many ideas. Maybe I'll make a few little brush rests too. Maybe a little Kahuli snail. Wouldn't that be cute? Okay, before we go, or you know what? Let's lay down the first wash, and then I can have some tea. Okay, grab your largest brush that you have and just lay down some water. And this might be a bit scary, but I want you to lay down water all across the whole illustration. And then we're gonna put down a gentle layer of yellow. You might be asking, why the heck? Because in that snail we have some white areas too, these ones. But when you look closely, you can actually see they're not white. They are very light yellow, and this is from the first layer. So the reason why I am doing this more and more is that I find when you start with a base layer that it pulls everything together even more. Rather than having a very, very crisp white area, I think it almost stands out too much. But again, I think this is kind of like a matter of taste, I'd say. I used to paint with the paper white in mind, so I would actually leave it white and not add a first wash. Okay, the reason I'm scrambling around here is I'm looking for a palette, which I have not prepared, so just 1 second, I'll find one. I don't have a white palette. Okay, let's use this one. This is not ideal because it's not white, but it's what I found. Okay, I'm watering down my lemon yellow quite a bit. This is such an intense color. And I'm dropping it onto the wet paper and just covering the whole thing. Make sure you don't use too much pigment. You don't want this to be bright and intense yellow. This is really just to prepare the groundwork for the illustration. Okay, this is it. Okay, Alina says it actually would be cute. The little snail brush wrist. I agree. So I made a watercolor palette, a mixing palette with a little bird perched on it on the side, which is something that I learned from Tracy, Arctic Tern. Sorry, Tracy. I'm mispronouncing your handle. Arctic Tern. And I just, yeah, I just love that idea that you create something flat and then something 3D, so to speak, comes out of it. So I want to do a kind of like a cup next time for, you know, like a water cup, maybe for paint water. And yeah, I think I'm going to try and do a little brush rest too with a little bird. So this month, other than my challenge, of course, October is also very famous for Inktober and all the other challenges inspired by Inktober. I don't know if you guys are participating in any. I am participating in Birdtober. So that's 31 days of drawing different types of birds. And I'm really enjoying it. And for the other challenge, I'm actually combining brush pens as my first layer and then doing the details with colored pencil, which is it's the same idea as creating a watercolor wash first and then going over it with color pencil. But the nice thing with the brush pens is that it's a relatively dry medium. You don't need paint water. So I love just sitting down, you know, late at night before I go to bed on the couch and just do these 20 minute scribbles in my tiny sketchbook without having to, you know, get out my watercolors. And I have all my brush pens and colored pencils ready to go for this project. So I really just have to grab my little case with the supplies. It's ready to go. Okay, I have my tea. I'm drinking Golden Monkey black tea today. I don't know if you saw that story, but I ordered a whole bunch of tea with hilarious names. I mean, one is called Hairy Crab, like crab with hairs, lots of hairs. You know, just as an example. It's funny. Okay. This is not drying, so I need to go and dry this with a hairdryer. And I'll see you in a minute. I think that should be good, and you can see how much lighter the yellow is now. I know that you guys know, but watercolor dries light. So that's why you want to make sure to, you know, put down enough pigment because it will be lighter afterwards. It's kind of a balance you have to find out by practice. And next step, I think in the tutorial I started with the brown parts and the yellow of the snail and those buds. So let's do that. I'm grabbing my mix of yellow ochre and raw sienna. Ooh, I missed the whole conversation in the chat. Okay. Sylvie says, Tracy's is so cute. Yeah, she just makes such beautiful ceramic pieces, often with Hawaiian birds. Bina is doing the original Inktober challenge. Alina is doing Inktober. but can't just only use ink. Yeah, I know. It might be easier though, right? Just use black ink and be done with it. But then you focus so much more on the drawing itself. So that's a totally different kind of pressure, isn't it? At least when you can add color, you can work on the whole thing a bit more. Megan is trying, is it Megan or Megan? Megan? I'm gonna say Megan. If it's wrong, just tell me. Megan is trying Calmtober. It's every other day. I really like that name. Calmtober. It's very good. It's like, hey, let's take the pressure off of Inktober. Let's do it every other day. That is nice. That's a good idea. Those everyday challenges are tricky. I always try to set myself up for success in the sense that I just really set a time limit. 20 minutes, that's it. And it kind of convinces me to sit down and do it. Thinking to myself, 20 minutes, I can do it. I can skip the shower. I'm just gonna draw for 20 minutes. And Steph is drinking a herbal chai. So is that a chai without the black tea part? So with all the goodies that smell like Christmas, the cinnamon, etc. That sounds good. It sounds very wintry and cozy. Okay, Kerstin is doing something I can't pronounce. Xun-tober? Xun? Exun? Kroon? What is that? That's funny. Xun-tober. And then there's a Splattered and Blooms daily painting challenge. Ooh, that sounds good. Is that you splatter paint on your paper and then you turn them into flowers? That really sounds like something I want to do. Okay, I'm switching to the burnt umber. I'm drawing in more of these lines here in the snail shell. And as I mentioned earlier, this really is kind of like the ugly stage of the whole illustration where you think, oh my goodness, where is this going? But it's just marvelous when you can do later on when you add the colored pencil or the pencil crayon, as they say in Canada. I learned that. Now I know what it is. And then for the upper part, use the lemon. Lemon straight from the pan. This can be really bright. So in reality, this snail's actually not, it's not that bright yellow. So if you have another type of yellow, that works just as well. I'm not going for a depiction of real life per se in my illustrations. I'm pretty much just using reference photos as my point of idea where I can go and, you know, add a little something. Okay, Lisa mentioned no shower-tober. You guys crack me up. So we have splatters and we have no shower and calm. Yeah, go for it. And Sylvie says, that would be a hard one. Or smelly? Definitely smelly.
So is this serious, like a no shower October? Or just, you know, somebody making fun? Like I want to do a Tober challenge. Let's do something silly. Okay. Next I'm grabbing my lime green, which is almost empty. Lisa says it's skipping your showers to do Inktober. Yep, that's what I'm doing. But I can assure you I'm not skipping all showers. Just, you know, some. And now for the leaves, we're going to apply negative space painting technique. This is a very simple one in this case, because all we're going to do is leave out space to indicate the veins of the leaves. So I almost feel like it's too fancy to call this negative space painting technique, but it is. It is. We're defining the veins by not painting them and painting around them, so to speak. For this leaf, you can do the same or you can fill it completely. It doesn't really matter. And then for the ones down here, because my brown is still wet, just be careful. If you don't want to mix these two colors, just leave a little space in between. And don't worry about it because we're gonna go over everything with colored pencil. So this little gap here is gonna disappear later. Okay, Lisa wants to know if this is almost fluorescent or if it's the monitor. No, you're right, it is almost fluorescent. It is not a neon pigment that I used, but there are some green pigments out there that are produced or manufactured artificially and that are extremely bright, like this one here. This particular paint actually has some yellow mixed in it as well. And again, it was a very bright and almost fluorescent yellow. And this is why this paint shows up almost in a fluorescent manner. All right, so next we're gonna tackle the veins of the leaf. I'm just thinking I should probably go back and dry this layer. Or, you know what, before we do that, let me add some of the raw sienna. I'm not sure why I pulled out this paint because I don't really need it. I think working with some kind of a darker yellow ochre and burnt umber for a brown is totally sufficient, but because we have the raw sienna, let's just use it. Why not? Just dropping in some of my raw sienna here and there. But yeah, absolutely optional, this step. You do not have to do this one. But you know what we could do, because this snail will need a shadow later. I kind of want to add the shadow at the end after I have painted the leaf. So I will save this for later. But for the shadow, it's actually really convenient to use this raw sienna because it's not too dark and you will still see a little shadow there. Now, I don't think I included it in the step-by-step tutorial, so this is gonna be something that I'll be showing you in the stream today. Okay, be right back. And here we go. It's not 100% dry, but I'll just paint around it. Okay, Bina says she's using the Seahawks green. Are you using my Seahawks green, the Molokai? That is a true neon fluorescent. That is the kind of neon that glows in the dark when you shine a black UV light on it. Yeah, that's really fun. You might have to explain what the Seahawks are, Bina, because my friends in overseas might not know. Okay, for the leaf, we're gonna stick to the lime green. Just drop some on my palette here. And then just like we did with the leaf up here, we're gonna paint the space around where the veins are. Might want to switch to a smaller brush. So I'm gonna switch to my size 4 because I'm still using my round 10 brush, which would probably work because it has a very nice, very sharp, pointy tip. But because the belly is quite big, as soon as you apply some pressure, your stroke will be a lot bigger. So this is why it is very helpful to use different size brushes, of which I have to constantly remind myself because I tend to grab one brush and do the whole thing with one brush. And we're just gonna go down this leaf, paint around the snail, and leave out these gaps to indicate the veins. Don't be too afraid to make mistakes here or to paint into your snail illustration. Especially for the snail, we're going to use some darker colored pencils later, and we'll cover up everything. Not everything. I mean, the point is to still have the watercolor peek through in certain spots. And it really works as a base canvas. And you can see I'm moving forward pretty quickly. And again, if you want to be very calm about this and not worry about where to place your lines and your shapes, just make a very exact sketch and then just color it in. In this step here, it is important to leave space for the center vein that goes across. So make sure you remember that when you paint the bottom part of the leaf. For the angle of the shapes here, I'm trying to mimic what I've already painted up here. So kind of think of it as a chevron pattern, you know, like little arrows you're painting in here that can help you complete the pattern. And if you want those veins to be the same size or width, I should say, you can go back in and redefine the shapes as well. As you can see in my original, I really didn't pay much attention to that part, and I have this pretty large gap here, which, you know, I don't really mind. But for your illustration, you can just make sure that you have some more symmetry. By making these gaps or the lighter lines all be around the same width. Okay, now for these little buddy buds down here, just gonna drop in a few strokes. I mixed yellow and green for this part here. All right. Yeah, and hey, I mean, I would still say ugly face, isn't it? It just looks very, yeah, we just basically are painting shapes. It's not very defined yet. I'm switching over to Awapuhi. The primary reddish pinkish color. Let's see if that's dry. Yeah, okay, it's dry enough. So the reason why I decided to paint buds like this is not only because the reference photo showed it like that, but also because this is such a strong, powerful color. I didn't want to fill the whole thing with these, with the red, because it would definitely take away from the snail. Even though the snail has this very bright yellow shell part, it would probably still the red part, if it were much bigger, would just take away from the snail, and the snail is our center piece here in this illustration. So for some balance, I decided that yes, indeed, this is a great idea. So I'm not painting the full-on pom-pom flowers, which would be huge and very dramatic. This is just kind of like a pop of red for some interest, but hopefully it's not taking away from the snail. I'm gonna add a little bit of red down here. It's not dry. Just gonna be careful. And also not too worried if it does blend. That's fine. You can actually do this part here with colored pencil as well. And especially those lines and flourishes. If you don't feel comfortable doing this with a brush, then this would already be a part you could also do with colored pencil. Jamesy?
Yeah.
Do you still have your Seahawks pajama pants somewhere?
Yeah. Somewhere.
Oh, okay. Somebody was referring to the Seahawks, and I thought I could show them the emblem. Yeah, in our family, in my husband's family, we have a whole bunch of really big Seattle Seahawks fans. You know, of the kind where they go to a game and they paint their faces blue and neon green and dye their hair in those colors. Always amuses me. So, yes. Okay, another round of drying, and then we'll add the shadow, and then we'll start with the colored pencils. Yeah, looking good. Okay, that's pretty dry. All right. Is the zoom still fine like this? Do you want me to zoom out again, or how is it? All good? Just let me know. There you go. Okay, so James just brought me here. Here we go. So it is kind of like a Seahawk. Isn't this, isn't this kind of like a newer logo though, James? It seems different with the gradient.
Oh yeah, they have all that.
Mm-hmm. So I think they did change it up a little bit. It seemed to be, this is almost like the Superman shape. I think it's just a great logo because it has the Seahawk bird in it and then these really great colors. Thank you. You're leaving now?
Yep.
Bye. Okay, so Bina says it's a phthalo yellow green. Oh, really? Huh. Usually phthalo green, it's not so, but yeah, you say yellow green. Absolutely, yeah. That might be it. Okay. I don't think I've ever painted with a phthalo yellow green. I always use phthalo green, which is a bit darker. Okay, but let's move on to the shadow. Okay, so I'm gonna use my raw sienna and make sure that for this step you do use a palette because we really only want a very light wash of this color and just add it around your snail. So if we wanted to logically continue this idea of the shadows, naturally you would also add it to other parts of this illustration. So for example, those flower buds would probably also cast a shadow here onto the leaves below, and then here and here as well. But I'm just, I'm just pretty happy to doing it for just the snail pretty much today. So don't be too concerned about adding more shadows to this illustration. Okay, hopefully this dries pretty quickly. I'm not going to use the hairdryer at this point because I'm just going to start over on the other side. So this has time to dry. And with two different types of green, this is a moss green and this is, it's called malachite. You know how I sometimes disagree with the names that the manufacturers give their colors. So for me, this is more like a dark emerald teal color, and malachite would be very different, like different. So, but no, it's okay. We're just gonna start with adding in quick little strokes some texture to our leaves. And here it really depends on what paper you use. If you're using a cold press watercolor paper or a rough watercolor paper, you're going to see so much more texture. And the smoother your paper, the less texture you'll see. Try to follow the shape of the leaf even when you do colored pencil details. Even if you feel like the stroke direction is not showing up in your illustration, I think it's a good habit to get into by always following the shapes of everything you draw. So in this case, the leaf has a curved line, so I want to make sure that the strokes I make with my colored pencils are also curved and not straight. Unless you do cross hatching, which is this technique, where usually you would work with straight lines. But of course, you can also do cross hatching with curved lines like this. All I'm saying is that I think it's a good habit to get into, to use the shape of whatever you're drawing. And at some point, you don't even have to think about this anymore. You can just start drawing, start adding some texture with colored pencils, and you will just naturally move your hand in a way that is conducive to the shape of whatever you're coloring. Okay, Sylvia's asking, Keiko, have you ever seen Ma Sit-Sit? What the heck is that? Ma Sit-Sit? Ma as in mom? Ma? No, I have not seen it. Is it a movie? Okay, I'm picking up my yellow ochre colored pencil, just emphasizing a few of the lines here, adding a bit of an outline around my leaf. So for me, I usually jump from one part to the other. I will try to not jump too much today, so to do it more in a way that is more logical. Building my leaf and then the Kahuli snail. But I tend to just jump to wherever I want to go in that moment. So how about you guys? When you do an illustration, do you usually stick to one detail and then perfect it and then move on to the next? Or do you like to work a little bit like we did today? Set the ground layer and then add details all over. Yeah, so I guess what I'm asking is this comfortable for you? Would this be the way that you would tackle this illustration too? Or would you just go at it in a completely different way? Like I could, for example, imagine some people drawing and painting the snail first and then adding the background or the side pieces, so to speak. So for me, one of the reasons why I do it this way is that I feel it's more, the style of my brush strokes is more cohesive when I do everything at the same time. Not everything at the same time, but in one go. So I paint the snail, I paint the leaves. And then I focus on the colored pencil for the whole piece. Okay, Sylvie says that moss, it is a gemstone or a half gemstone, like jade. Oh, okay. No, I haven't. I just recently found out that the company Koh-i-Noor is actually named after what was then I think the largest diamond in the world. I had no idea. So that's another fun fact that I just thought of because Sylvie is talking about this other gemstone that has a name. It was first found in a meteorite. That is so cool. Cosmochlor jade. Amazing. Can you imagine finding a meteor and then it has some incredible pigment? That's, that's it. It's like, okay, that was it. We got 10 grams of this meteorite green. We can make 1 pan of watercolor and then never use it because it's too precious. Okay, Alina says, if I follow a tutorial, I'll just do what the teacher does. And then if I'm flying solo, I am all over the place. Oh, great, just like me. Perfect. All right, I'm just continuing adding my moss green. And now for the pressure that I'm using, I'm actually doing my strokes very lightly. This also depends on what type of colored pencil you use. So these are the Caran d'Ache Luminance, and they are very pigmented, which means you don't have to use a lot of pressure to get a lot of pigment on to your paper. If you're using a different brand that is maybe harder, for example, what are they called? Polychromos by Faber-Castell or the Hydrogiten by Tombow, you might have to go over everything a few more times. Whereas when you use water-soluble colored pencils, you might be really careful because those are really like crayons. You'll have a lot of pigment on your paper very quickly. And if your paper is still moist, then you'll have blends with the watercolor layer below it as well. So I'm just pointing this out to you because I don't know what exactly you're using. And if you're seeing a different result, it might be first because you're using a different paper with a different tooth, or second, it might be because you're using different colored pencils, or maybe 3, even using a different pressure. So take all these things into consideration, and then you can also change them up. You can use a different paper, you can try out different colored pencils, and then in the end find out what you like the best. So as you can see, I am applying most of my dark green towards the center of the leaf and then kind of like fading it out towards the edges. I am also applying the colored pencil on top of the shadow. I kind of feel like the shadow is a bit harsh, but it will be softer later on once we add details to the snail. Right now it looks very dominant. But our snail will be pretty dark here in these details, and that'll be more dominant than the shadow later on. Okay, adding some more quick little strokes following the shapes and curves of our leaves here. Then drawing in some details for our flower buds. I don't know if you can hear that, but we have parrots flying by right now. Squawk, squawk, squawk. And don't forget to take a break if you feel like your hand is cramping. Depending on how you hold your pencil, the cramps might start sooner or later. So I do recommend that you try and not do death grip on your colored pencil. You can even try different things like holding your pencil like this. I know it seems totally bonkers, but it will actually allow you to rest your hand, or not maybe rest it, but to try out different angles, and just holding it in a different way will lead to different marks. But this requires quite a bit of practice because you don't have as much control. I think we are very used to holding pencils in the same way that we hold writing instruments. However, drawing and writing are quite different. So I want to encourage you to just maybe give it a try and hold your pencil in a different way. And especially when you do things like this here, where you add some more texture, for example. For line work, you can switch back to writing position and add lines. But especially for those of you who want to learn how to draw more loosely, changing the way you hold your utensils might be the first step to, just changing up things a little bit, get a bit more loose. And another thing that I want to mention is when you hold your pencil like this, you can utilize the side of the lead more. See, and you can cover actually a larger area. And I honestly think that by just changing the way you hold the pencil, your hand won't get tired as fast. So I know I'm going over all of this pretty quickly right now. So what I did is just emphasizing the darker brown parts of the snail. I added some shadows here at the bottom part of the snail shell. Just little curved strokes, again following the shape of the snail, the snail shell. Adding some lines in between the other lines. Adding another line here. Okay, let me look over to the chat. Alina says, I do often think of you when I'm flying solo. Today I was in such an ugly phase that I almost threw away my illustration. No, the one with the bottle? It's so cool. What would Keiko do? Well, worst case, I would probably glue together 2 sketchbook pages. But honestly, I haven't done that in years. Because, I mean, honestly, if it's your sketchbook, I mean, I know we all want to show our stuff on Instagram because, you know, we're participating in the 30-day challenge. So it's like, hey, I did it. But if you really don't like it, just, you know, don't show anybody. But we're always too critical with ourselves. So most of the time I find that a lot of people actually like what I did, and then I step away and come back a week later and I'm like, okay, it's actually I like it. Often I think in the moment we're just way too critical. And the ink brush pen saved the day. Very good. And Sylvie says, we have tons to learn. Yeah, I agree. I learn all the time. Just taking this ceramics class, I mean, I am such a beginner and I'm soaking it up and I really love it. But for illustration, for painting, there's never an end. I don't think we can ever sit down and say, okay, we've done it. That's it. No more. In the aspect of learning, I mean. I think the only thing that can happen is that we just don't like the medium that much. So you try it out for a while and you just find, you know, it's not really for me. That can definitely happen. Sylvie says, I'm not happy with my Pablo pencils on this piece. Yeah, I think the Pablo are very hard. They're a bit similar to the Tombow Idojiten. And they are, I think, more problematic on watercolor. Yes. So they are kind of waxy, and when you build up layers, it's almost like putting wax on your watercolor. So definitely, I think the luminance would be better, or any kind of softer colored pencil. This one, for example, is a Durant Color Soft. Or, you know, you could use ink tints, which are the water-soluble colored pencils by Derwent, or you could use the Caran d'Ache Super Color too. Or you can use, you know, not a specific brand at all. I have had people give me recommendations about pencil brands that are not, you know, the most known ones, such as like Castle Arts, for example, that are supposedly just as good. So yeah, just try out different ones and you'll find out which combination you like the best. Servus, Rudi. And hi, Sabrina. Alina rips out her sketchbook pages. And yes, thank you, Rudi. Don't forget to click on thumbs up button on under the video. Oh yeah, yes. Thank you. Oh, and remember, you guys, at the end, after the session, which, you know, we're gonna be done very soon, I'm going to introduce the travel set that drops on Sunday. So if you have to go now, you can come back later and watch the end of the video so that you know what's gonna happen on Sunday. Oh, we forgot the head of the snail. Poor thing, no eyes. Okay, I'm adding a curved line here and then just some little spots like that. So just a little bit of mark making to indicate some of the interesting skin texture of these animals. So the kahuli, the Hawaiian tree or land snail, comes in so many varieties. There are hundreds of different ones. This is really just one of them. They range in size as well. So some are literally just a few millimeter big. Those are mostly the ones with the, you know, the cute ones with the cinnamon bun shell. So when you see a photo, you kind of assume that they're bigger, but some of these are literally, they're so tiny and they're translucent, so it's very easy to miss them. This one is probably about this size, but they come in much smaller sizes as well. I don't think any of them get really big, so they are all very tiny, dainty, cute little snails. And the interesting, or one of the most interesting things for me to learn about the kahuli was that they actually don't eat the plant matter itself. They eat the fungus that grows on the leaves. So for the Hawaiian ecosystem, these snails are absolutely crucial because they kind of keep the plants clean, if you want to call it that. And because a lot of these snails live on native Hawaiian plants, such as this tree, the ohia, they're very crucial to keeping those plants and trees healthy. So whenever I complain that the, you know, snails or slugs eat my cucumbers or whatever, it's actually not the Hawaiian ones that do that. It's the other ones. So yeah, just an interesting fun fact about the Hawaiian snail. They're kind of like vacuum cleaners for their favorite plants. So with my crimson alizarin, yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. Maybe a bit dark. I'm just always complaining about the color names. I'm just going in between the flourishes here and just to fill them up a little bit. You know what? I actually don't really like this color too much for this part. Let me grab something more pink. Yeah, that might be too pink. I don't see it right now. So let's do the pink then. This is a Faber-Castell Albrecht Dürer. So it's a water-soluble color pencil, and these are super soft, very soft. I'd say the same kind of softness as the Derwent Inktense. So if you like really, really soft colored pencils, this would be your go-to. Like I'd say they're almost like the Neocolor 2, but in pencil shape. Just adding a few dots all around the illustration. And then it always helps to take a step back and just maybe, you know, even stand up from your chair and look at your illustration. And see, isn't it interesting how that shadow kind of disappeared now? Remember how it was very pronounced and almost too much? And now it's, if you don't focus on it, if you look at your illustration, the whole illustration, you don't really notice it that much anymore, but it adds some nice depth to the piece. Oh, Okay, my dears, let me just gather my things here. So, who of you painted along today? And who of you is done already? All right. Yay, so we did it. Are you done too? And Kerstin painted along too. Ooh, that's great. Okay, so I think the tempo today was fine. It was good to follow along. This is always really helpful for me. If you don't want to say it in the chat, you can always text me too. Anything, everything, you know. I love getting feedback for my classes. I grew up in an atmosphere where people are very direct, aka Bavaria, Germany. So don't hold back. You know, you don't have to be like gentle with me or anything. You can just spit it out and tell me. I am very grateful for any sort of feedback, constructive feedback. Okay, so let's move on to the travel set. I'll put this to the side. And okay. So for this part of the session, I'm going to introduce to you the set that I will publish this Sunday, October 6, 2024. And the set will come in a black tin with a holographic vinyl decal that I'm currently printing out and weeding, as they call it. And this has, wow, this has like, somebody touched my tin with greasy fingers. It was probably myself. Okay, listen to the parrots. You hear them? Aren't they just so loud? Okay, so this is the tin. This is the set. I will add a magnet strip at the bottom so it doesn't move around the tin too much. I will also add a swatch card, but I still have to make it. I haven't made it yet. So you will get a swatch card with, you know, the shapes, like here, like a sunburst shape, and then the paint names, of course. Okay, there are 13 colors, and starting from the center, which is a silvery shimmer called Snowflake. So this is the center shape here, and then going from right to left, it's gonna be Milky Way, Titanium White, Pakalana, which is a flower. This is a very opaque Naples yellow. It's really very gouache, this paint, very opaque. Then we have the good old Ice Queen. I think a lot of you have this color already, but it is really one of my favorite winter colors. So I did want to include it in the set. You know what? This is confusing. I think I'm gonna maybe build it like this. So now I'm mirroring the shape of the set. Then we have Aolani. That's a, oh gosh, what is this? A Chinese vermilion hue. It's also a very opaque paint, but you can water it down just like you can water down the yellow Naples yellow Pakalana. But I just want to point out that these paints, actually all four of them, are very opaque. So you can use both of these to paint stars. And you can see here, you know, I did use black paper, so it shows up really well on the black paper. And And then the next color is Callisto. Callisto is one of my favorite shimmers, and it's a bit, I don't know, it kind of sits in the shop a lot and sits there and cries because nobody wants to buy it. So I figured I'm just gonna put it in the set. People have to use it. It has a dark brownish black base and then this beautiful brown shimmer, brown, gold, copper, everything. It is just such a great color for accents. I love, love, love it. And then the next one is, it's a Mayan pigment, which means the recipe resembles the kind of pigments that the old Mayans in the southern part of the Americas used to make. So it looks like a dark indigo. And it's just such a wonderful pigment. If you already have a ton of indigo, maybe, you know, you feel like you don't need this, but this paint behaves differently than other indigo colored pigments. Okay, and then this one is a very useful color. This is a primary red. I mixed it with some quinacridone magenta to have even more punch. I thought a lot about adding a color like this to a winter set, but honestly, I think it's because I live in the tropics. I kind of want to include something that resembles or that gives you an idea of that. And kind of like something like an inspiration for you guys who have a real winter to use a punchy color, maybe just as an accent in your paintings. This is also a fantastic mixing color. This one, transparent. It's super nice for mixing. Then the next one is Lokelani, which I think I've published only one time. Years ago. So this is a ultramarine rose base with a little bit of a shimmer, very subtle shimmer. Hope you can see that. And up next is another color that's actually really popular, but I haven't made in years. It's Honu, which is the Hawaiian sea turtle. And it's like a silvery teal shimmer. I think this would be a great color to paint maybe like Christmas decoration, where you would usually use like a more regular green, and you know, instead mix it up and use something a little bit different. Hold on, this was all over the place. Okay, I did add a color shift because I thought that would be fun. So this one, Kumulipo, it shifts from blue to purple. Great, great, great accent color. So this would be something to use on dark paper, to use for highlights if you paint Christmas ornaments or little cute wintry things, for example. You can add little dots and lines with this and it'll just show up well. This paint works best on dark things, so either dark paint or dark paper. Then this Viridian is actually a paint I only published one time within the Aloha Kiwi challenge I did together with Stacy from Stay Kiwi Colors. That's been 3 years ago. And it was only available for one month within that month. So I think most people don't have this color. But it is kind of like a staple color because just like this one, it is fantastic for mixing. It's a bit similar to phthalo green, but it is a bit different. But it is just a transparent, beautiful, bright green. And then, last but not least, Uki Uki, which is a granulating purple. It was part of one of my granulating sets from last year. And I just thought having something dark and mysterious in there would be would be good. Okay, so these are all the colors. And as you can see, I mixed colors that you might already have. You know, the Milky Way and the Ice Queen, for example, and the Snowflake. But I try to really go with the colors that I like and not really worry about if you guys already have the color. And I think, you know, a travel set, it's just so convenient because you can just grab this tin and you have 13 colors with you, out of which a few of them really, really blend and mix well. Okay, you guys, this was it for today. I hope you enjoyed today's two-part session. First painting and then looking at the new set. The shop update will be this Sunday. The Hawaiian time is 9 a.m. So just think of today's live session, you know, the time you join the live session, and it's going to be an hour later. So for example, over in Germany, it's going to be 9 p.m., not 8 p.m. Yeah, and I wish you all a wonderful weekend, and hopefully I'll see you on Sunday for the shop update. And I'll see you, let's see, I haven't planned another live session for next week yet. It really depends on how many orders come in and how busy I am with packaging. And then I also have my next ceramics class on Wednesday, so I'm not sure if we're gonna do a live stream for the bee. But as always, just stay tuned with my newsletter and on my Instagram, and then you'll know. All right, you guys. Aloha. Bye-bye.